Okay. One thing that I want to share is when you're transitioning from define phase to measure phase, okay, you are deepening the process understanding through data. Deepening the process understanding through data. All of you type DBDM, that I call data-based decision making. This is the labor-intensive phase when the data isn't in digital formats. Okay, this is a labor-intensive phase, and you have all the recorded data on pen and paper in the industries, and if it is not digital, or it is going to be labor-intensive. Okay, and key metrics. Okay, like process capability studies, sigma levels, and some additional metrics. Okay, there are three key metrics that will establish in this measure phase. What is the current capability, and what is the capability that you want to improve? What is current sigma level? Okay, sigma level we had covered in chapter 1. Okay, and what are the additional metrics? We first time yield, rolled throughput yield, all that we had covered earlier. If you want to access my videos and presentations of all this chapter 5.1, stay till the end. I will share with you everything. Okay, right. Okay, now failure modes and effects analysis. Okay, I just want to quickly know what all the terms that you have heard in FMEA. Just type it in the chat box. Let me see what all the terms that you have heard in FMEA. Anybody can type anything, okay, just for a few minutes. RPN, very good. Okay, RPN is a good one. What else have you heard about in this thing? Okay, impact, safety, okay, severity, detection. All right, we'll see all that. Okay, occurrence, yeah, right. So we will go into the depth of all that, but before that I want all of you to type what is called as APQP. Okay, please type APQP in the chat box. Okay, APQP is advanced product quality planning. How many of you have heard about that? Type heard in the chat box if you heard about it, if you used it, if you know all that. If you know, you can type K no W. If you don't know, you can type D and K in the chat box. Do not know. Okay. Okay. There are a few people who know. There are a few people who do not know. Fantastic. Okay, fine. So what I'll do is I will quickly give you an overview of APQP. I'll go a little fast on this because the subject is actually FMEA. But then FMEA becomes a part of this product quality planning. Advanced product quality planning. If you see this advanced product quality planning, whenever you plan to launch a product, I'm repeating, whenever you plan to launch a product, there is some phases that is there. One is called as a kickoff phase. One is called end of concept phase, because you're planning to initiate that product. So kickoff phase, then end of concept, then design. You release the design of the product, then initial product approval, and then you do a product launch. Okay, if this is clear on a scale of 1 to 10, please give me a 9 or 10 if it is super clear. The kickoff, end of the concept, design release, initial product approval, and product launch. Fantastic. Okay, thank you for your acknowledgement. Okay, let me quickly go into the phases. In APQP, you have a planning phase, then you have a product design and development. Okay, then you have a process design and development. First, you had a product design and development. You have a process design and development. Then you have the validation of the product and process. Then you produce it and use it post delivery. Okay, planning, product design and development, process design and development, validation of the product and process, and ongoing production and delivery. If this is clear, the APQP phases are clear, 5 phases of APQP is clear, please give me a 9 or 10 if it is super clear. I'm introducing this because I want you to know where the FMEA fits in here. Okay, great. Thank you very much for acknowledging that. Fantastic. Okay, fantastic participation. Okay, and the second level of documents. What are the second level of documents? There is something called as process risk mitigation. Okay, there's something called measurement system analysis. We are going to deal with measurement system analysis also in this chapter. Okay, and process control methods and qualifying alternate inspection plans. Okay, if second level documents are clear, just type 9 or 10 if it is super clear. Simple, okay, this is not complicated. You have to mitigate the risk. You have to validate your measurement system. You have to ensure that your methods for process control are in place and inspection plans are ready. Okay, simple. Okay, let's go into next level, which is system documents. That is where you can do several problem solving methodologies like 8D methodology for problem solving. You can have delegated product release verification training documents, because training is important, auditing is important, problem solving methodology is important, supplier management is important, customer audit is important. So all the system documents we need to make. If this you're finding it interesting, useful, valuable, fantastic, awesome, put it in the chat box so that with this background of APQP, we will step into the great tool, the methodology called failure mode and effects analysis. Okay, interesting, valuable, useful, fantastic, awesome. Just put it in the chat box. I want all of you to be on the toes, learning, be a lifelong learner, okay? I'm giving my all out passion to really share this valuable information, okay? Great. So if you have not registered for the upcoming session, if you want to become an internationally recognized Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, please click on this link and be a part of my upcoming session. Don't miss to be a part of a lifelong learner, okay? Now, what is risk? What do you see on the screen? Let's see what do you see on the screen. Iceberg. Now, suddenly when you're traveling into the sea, an iceberg comes up. You don't know which direction to go. The same thing, when you started or initiating the project, have you seen suddenly something, a big thing comes up? How many of you can relate to what I'm saying? Just type ICR, I can relate in the chat box. Have you got any one of these in the projects? Suddenly something unexpected turns up when you're traveling through your project. Good, all of you can relate to that. Fantastic, okay. Now, so before starting the journey, do we just start the journey hoping that everything would be better? Or, so you have two options. Option A is start the journey and hope everything would be better. Or B, option B, where you foresee what will be the risk in this journey, and to mitigate the risk, you take some precautions so that you either avoid the risk, or when the risk comes, you are shielding yourself from that risk. So option A, option B, which option do you choose? Naturally, option B. Fantastic. Okay. So same thing in product development also. You develop some product hoping that it will sell. After the customer experiences some difficulty, let us solve the problems, or design it, develop it in such a way that the customer, it doesn't affect the customer. So I call this as two different types of approaches. R and R is radar and rescue. Which approach is better? Radar approach is better or rescue approach is better? Okay, thank you for your amazing participation. So many of you say radar, which means you avoid before with what is called as risk analysis. Evaluate the risks and make sure you take precautions. The other option is you can just start something with a hope, and then after you find in the sea and fall into the water, send the lifeboats, life jackets, and save them. Rescue approach. So from rescue, both are required, but where should you be spending more time on? Both are required because any unexpected things will come. The rescue approach is problem solving, okay? That will always be. But where should you spend more time, maximum time? Radar approach, right? So that you don't foresee, you don't get into the problem, preventing approach. But today, where are we spending most of our time today? In your organization, where do you find people spending most of the time? Post-mortem, firefighting, yeah, rescue approach. Fine. So, so what can we do? That's a question that we are going to answer today. What is that we can do is a question that we are going to answer today. The question we are going to answer is, how can we be proactive to identify the key risks on any project and decide what we should be doing about them? So proactive way instead of a reactive way. So we don't want to rely, problem solving methodologies are important, but more than that, being proactive and preventing is more important. So we don't want to rely on only problem solving methodologies to get it right, so that we spend less time. Let's spend some time with radar so that we can spend less time with lifeboats. How many of you agree with this? Please type agree in the chat box that we don't want to be spending time on problem solving. We wanted to be spending more time on radar rather than spending on rescue lifeboats. If you super agree, all of you type super agree, yes, in the chat box. Good. Thank you very much. Okay, now I'm going to share something very, very interesting of a design cycle. Okay. Now, there are some design changes which keep happening from time to time. So before the product launch, the design starts. Okay. And after the product launch, also some design changes happen. Okay, I want people to focus on the slide. It's a very, very, very important slide, okay, to understand. With respect to time, people keep making changes to the design. Suppose I'm launching a product. Before the launch of the product, we do the design. How many of you agree? Just type agree in the chat box. Before the launch of the product, we do the design. And there are some design changes that happens there after you do the prototype. Okay. Now, generally what happens, up to the product launch, there will be a lot of design changes. And after the product is launched, again, there will be a design changes because there is a feedback from the customer. And again, there are a lot of changes to this design. And then the design changes becomes less and less over a period of time. If this is clear, please give me a 9 or 10 if it is super, super clear. There is the second hump that is coming because after the product launch, again, some design changes are required. And hence, this is clear. So this will happen if you don't do the design FMEA and process FMEA properly. Okay. The actual should be like something like this. Okay. The actual should be most of the design changes should happen after the product launch. There should be very, very, very less design changes after the product launch. How many? If you agree with me, just type agree. If you super agree with me, type super agree in the chat box. You can type small SCA for super agree. That's fine. Okay. So we must be more on this red curve where we must be spending a lot of time and doing a lot of design changes before the product launch rather than after the product launch. If you found this slide useful and interesting, just put it in the chat box because I conceptualize this and try to communicate to you why FMEA is important. This is not taught in any book, okay? This is not taught in any book. So this is a great learning for you. How many of you feel it's a great learning, awesome learning? Good. Now we will enter into what is called as failure, potential failures, mode, types, ways, possibilities, effect, negative effects on the process are under study, analysis, failure modes and effects analysis. Okay. So potential failures. I will explain each and every one of them. What are the ways in which it can fail? You should foresee the ways in which it can fail. If it fails, what is the effect that it will cause? What are the causes for that? And what are the analysis that we would do and try to prevent it? That is what we are going to see. There are different types of FMEA. Okay. Whenever somebody gets an idea, that idea has to be tested. Concept, right? Then idea becomes what is called as specifications. Uber, Ola, these are all some ideas. Then the concept has to be tested. You have a specification for that idea. Then it changes into concepts. Voyo rooms in India is an idea. Concept. And from there, then you go into detailed design. If this is clear on a scale of 1 to 10, please give me a 9 or 10. If so far it is clear. The idea has to be conceptualized. From concept to idea, you need to crystallize the idea. That's what I call specification. And once a concept is ready, you need to design. This is called design. So something is called as concept FMEA or functional FMEA. Then we'll have what is called as process FMEA. There are 3 types of FMEAs, FDP, okay, functional FMEA, design FMEA, and process FMEA. All of you type FDP in the chat box. So you have a development, product testing, then you have a process plan, tool and design make, and then production trials here. And then you have manufacturing, right? So if this is clear, type super clear SC in the chat box. That's why we have 3 types of FMEA. It is also called as a concept FMEA, okay, or a function FMEA. Then after the concept is crystallized, then you design the product. It's called design FMEA. And then once the design is crystallized, you develop the process. That's called process FMEA. If so far it is interesting, useful, valuable, fantastic, awesome, put it in the chat box. So let me introduce you to what is called as the fabulous, what is called as failure modes and effect analysis. Okay. Now, in FMEA overview, it is a tool across various phases. It is not necessary that FMEA you use only a measure phase, okay? It is used across all the phases, define, measure, analyze, all these 3 phases it is used. So it is basically to identify the risk even before something happens in the design or a concept, at a concept or a design or in the process, okay? And then evaluate it, find out the root cause, and then try to mitigate the risk. Take action so that it doesn't affect the end customer, it doesn't affect the process, it doesn't affect the design. If FMEA is done on concept, it will affect the design. If it is not done in the design properly, it will affect the process. If it is not done in the process properly, it will affect the product. How many of you are super clear about this? I'll repeat again. If FMEA is not done properly on a concept, it will affect the design. If it is not done properly on the design, it will affect the process. If it is not done properly on the process, it will affect the product. And finally, customer suffers. Okay, we will have a question and answer towards the end, and I will explain if you have further questions, okay? So it involves a systematic data collection on the team input, and it often begins with the measure phase, but it can overlap in the other phases. Okay, so the structure of FMEA is typically, I'll give you the template. If you stay till the end, I'll give you the access to the FMEA template, okay? And you will have key columns, okay, like process step, failure mode, severity, occurrence, detection, risk, all that I'll explain shortly, okay? And then you will have some columns which is having in the improve phase, the recommended actions, responsibility, who will complete that and all that stuff. And I'm going to explain the steps slowly and steadily now, okay, in the next 5 to 10 minutes. You'll find it very interesting, okay? Now, the phases of FMEA is, I want you to type IAC, okay? Identify, assess, and control. All of you type IAC in the chat box. Okay, great. Now, first, you need to identify the type of failure. You need to define that clearly. Then we need to assess the failure to get further understanding, the fuller understanding of the key risk issues. And then we need to control it, addressing the key issues, so that we will have an effective reduction of risk or even elimination of the risk. So if this is clear on a scale of 1 to 10, please give me a 9 or 10 if it is super clear. Okay. Identify, assess, and control. Simple. I'll break this down further. Okay, I'll break this down further. This is the template. Okay, there is a template for functional FMEA, design FMEA, process FMEA. I'll give you a generic template. You can customize this template. The templates are a starting point of putting this together. Okay. Now, identify, assess, and control. This is the template. The first one is failure mode. All of you type FM in the chat box. The first is, I'm going to explain the 7 steps. Okay. The second is effects and severity, because any failure will have an effect, and how severe is that effect, we need to check. And causes are related to failure modes. Okay, this is the great learning for you. CF, you should type CFM. Causes are related to failure modes and not the effect. Okay, all of you type CFM in the chat box. Causes are related to failure modes and not the effect. Please write down in your notebook. I will ask a quiz question. Causes are related to failure modes, not the effect. Okay, and then every cause, how frequently it happens is called occurrence. And then depending upon the type of controls, you will have what is called as a detection ranking. Okay, so severity, occurrence, and detection, SOD. All of you type SOD in the chat box. Now please write in your notes. Okay, severity for the effect. If there is an undesirable effect, how severe it is, and if there are causes, how frequently does it happen? If you want to prevent these causes from happening, what are the current controls you have for the causes, so that depending upon the control method, your detection scoring will be affected. Okay, and then you evaluate the current risk and further action plans. Okay, and then you will evaluate the future risk. So far, if it is interesting, useful, valuable, put it in the chat box. I'll dive further. So the FMEA is based method is structured around the 7 major steps. It is structured around the 7 major steps. Let me go into the 7 major steps now. Okay, all of you pay attention to this. Output of each step is captured in this worksheet. The output of each step is captured in the worksheet. The first step is failure mode. It is captured here. How could a product or process fail to meet its requirement? That's what should be written here. Okay, the first step is failure mode, and failure mode is how could a product or a process fail to meet its requirement. You need to write the failure mode here. Okay, the second is effect and severity. If the failure happens, what should be the potential result and how bad it would be? I'll repeat, what is the effect of it if the failure happens? How severe it is, how bad it is, you have to write here. Third one is the causes and occurrence. What is the reason? What are the potential causes for that failure? I told you causes are related to the failure modes. How likely they are to happen, that is called occurrence. Frequency of occurrence, how likely they are to happen. You write it here. Then here control and detection you will put. What is the current control that we have? how effective that control is. That is called detection number. How effective the control is to detect if the cause happens. Okay. And then I told you already, how do we measure the risk? You have a severity ranking on the scale of 1 to 10. You have an occurrence ranking on the scale of 1 to 10. You have a detection ranking on the scale of 1 to 10. And we have what is called as the current risk. We evaluate severity into occurrence into detection. And you will, what actions you will address the case. What is the action that you would take? Right? And then once you take this action, what would be the future risk? Will the effect come down? Will the causes come down? Will the controls come down? Normally, we eliminate causes and establish control mechanisms so that mostly the effects will almost be the same, but then the frequency of occurrence and the ability to detect it will be stronger so that the risk will come down. Okay, after the action, what was achieved and who else would benefit from the change? So there are different examples that I can give you. Example one is refund request entry, incurrent amount entered, severity is 8, occurrence is 10, and detection is 7. The risk priority number is 568 into 10 into 7, whatever it is, right? And second example is refund check printing. Okay, this is just some examples for 9 into 1 into 2, which is 18, which is low priority. The earlier one was 560 was high priority, and actionable insight is higher RPN, then the greater need for corrective action, and you prioritize and do that based on the RPN numbers. So I will give you the access to these templates, okay, and I will also share with you the lean belt training manual and things like that. Okay, so I have simple 3 questions today, and after this question and answer, we will share this Lean Six Sigma training manual and access to these presentations. Okay. The first question is, in which phase of Six Sigma project is FMEA most often initiated? Okay. Let's see the answers. Define phase or measure phase or analyze phase. Most often, okay. Most often initiate. That's the question. Okay. It is B, which is the measure phase. Most often. It is across all the phases, but most often. That's a key question here. Okay. Okay. The second question is, what does SCV represent? This is an easier one to all of you. I know all of you will type the right answer for this. Okay. SCV is the right word, the severity, right? Okay. This is the easier one. Okay. So that's severity. That's the correct answer. How does the risk priority number calculated? This is also an easier one. Okay, many of you would answer it. We've already seen it. Okay. So it is severity into occurrence into detection. Okay, times